Dune Awakening has a problem right now. I was in the middle of the process of preparing some more guide videos, especially when it comes to the first steps in the end game and spice melange and the new resources you need, and so on and so forth. And then while I was doing the math and I was trying to kind of get together a video about on how and where to get the resources, what to do about them, Funcom released the PvE patch for the Deep Desert. This was very unexpected because they basically announced the whole changes on Tuesday, then on Wednesday evening the test server did go live, and then Thursday in the morning we all woke up and the patch was there. And I first thought, okay, well, this basically throws out all my calculations because, well, there will be now an abundance of resources and I have to calculate the whole thing again. But that's great because that means we are now getting those resources faster. So I was going into the deep desert over the weekend and was trying to do some new calculations. And I was kind of right. And I was also very, very wrong. Why? Well, my calculations were completely off. That's true. But not because we now have an overabundance of resources, but because there is none. So what happened? Is it too many players are now farming the resources? Yes. That's sort of a problem. Like each and every one is now farming the resources because, hey, PvE territory, right? More people are checking it out because they don't have to be afraid of being slaughtered. But the biggest problem is actually that Funcom has also reduced the resource income by a lot. And what that means is there are less resources in the PvE area, and the respawn timer on those resources has been increased to 45 minutes each. So what is now happening is tons more people coming in, less resources in general, and the resources respawn has also been increased significantly. So this is now a zero-sum game. No, seriously. You are basically getting out with the amount of resources you would have gotten if you got killed in PvP before the patch. And that's not really fun, neither for the PvE nor for the PvP players. So, wait, why is this not fun for the PvP players? Well, first things first, they lost 25 to 30% of their playground, which of course is not great. But also, more importantly, what is now happening is that a lot of the PvP players have a similar problem to the PvE players, and it's just the other end of the extreme. The PvE players have the problem that they are not getting enough resources, and even if they do and get the equipment and all that together, the PvE players are asking themselves, what for? What am I doing this for? There is no end game, there is no target, there is not really anything you need this for. Like, the moment you reach tier 5, you've basically the best equipment you need to play this game if you're not necessarily jumping into PvP. And then there is the other extreme end, and that is the PvP players who have the best of the best gear, and there is absolutely nothing for them to do in the PvP territory without slaughtering all the new PvE players, like having a look into the now much smaller PvP zone. And it is much easier for bigger guilds to basically have scouts and other ways of keeping tabs of the players which are making the mistake to venture forth into the PvP zone. And the moment you're basically going into the PvP mode, then 2 to 5 minutes later, you have 10 ornithopters on your ass shooting you down with rockets. Doesn't matter if you had any resources with you, you are just getting slaughtered. And that leads to a huge problem. And that is that the PvE players are frustrated because they don't get the resources and they are still getting slaughtered somehow when they are just trying out the PvP zone. And the PvP players are getting frustrated because, as fun as it is to maybe slaughter and kill some weaker enemies at some point, you're wasting resources on what? Right? There's nothing really to fight over. And now we have this weird zone, which is neither interesting for PvE or really for PvP players. And I have the bad feeling that Funcom cannot really do much about it, because what they need is content. They need gameplay aspects for the PvE players. They need something they can actually utilize their PvE equipment. And for PvP players, they need something to actually fight over the whole week. Like, people would say, oh, yeah, it's the spice. They will fight over the spice. Believe me when I tell you, all the big guilds have harvested so much spice in the first 2 weeks that they don't need more spice. The same goes for other resources. They are literally just flying around now with scout ornithopters in like 10-man groups, shooting down everything which moves, which isn't 10-man groups. So this is also not really fun. And then, of course, there are the problems the PvP PvE zone now has, and that is like bugs and glitches. Like, let's say the PvP ships are not PvP flagged, so for the last few days, people could farm some really rare resources, and which made it even easier for them to get the last bits of equipment. Or there is this weird bug, and this is actually really frustrating for PvE players, that they can be attacked in PvE zones. Wait, what? How does that work? So this actually happened to a buddy of mine who was in the PvE zone, right? There was a spice explosion. He was going down to the spice explosion. There were other people immediately also farming the spice, and they were in the PvE area of the PvP area, and everything was fine, right? And then just a few moments later, rockets were crashing down on them, exploding left and right, killing and destroying all the people which were farming that spice. And how did that happen? Well, apparently the PvP slash targeting system works from the attacker side and not the person who is targeted. So basically, what happened is that the people were sitting and farming in a PvE zone, but the PvE zone was close enough to the PvP zone that people could just hover in the PvP zone, shoot the rockets, and the rockets would attack other players, right? Because it was coming from the PvP zone and they were flagged for PvP. That's, of course, a slight oversight there. Like, in general, the rollout of the PvE area in the deep desert, I would say, was very hastily, and that really shows me that they were probably bleeding players left and right, because a lot of PvE players didn't want to do PvP. And yes, I can only repeat this again because people like to point this out and be like, well, it's also a PvP game. Yeah, but Funcom has advertised this game as PvE friendly and also having enough content for PvE players. And the reality was not that, right? So I understand that Funcom was probably looking at the numbers and were like, oh shit, people are jumping off the game left and right the moment they have to go into the deep desert because they really don't want to. And I understand that, but I don't understand the thinking behind this. Like, when you usually have like 30 to 40 players in the deep desert, now this would spike to like 80 or even more people in the deep desert because of the changes. Why would you reduce the amount of resources in the deep desert, plus also like janking up the respawn time, plus having a lot of idiot players just building their houses all where the resources are? So you have even less resource placers on the map. And the reality behind this is a lot of people are now jumping off the game, even more frustrated. I'm frustrated because the videos I wanted to make regarding the deep desert and all that, they are like useless. right, I put them on hold and made this video instead, which I normally don't like to do. I don't like to make those me complaining videos because that's not what I'm focusing on. And again, there are enough pundits out there on the internet already who do that for a daily job. I don't have to add to that. But it makes it extreme hard for me to give like interesting information when every week I don't know how much it changes and if Funcom has already figured out what they want to do here. So this has to change, and they probably have to do it quickly again because the state we're in right now is not feasible, and then we will see how it goes. But basically, if you're wondering, hey Mole, where is your endgame guide videos I like to watch? The answer is coming soon at some point when I can give you actually some coherent answers which are not changing every day. So yeah, I try my best. With that said, we're at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a like. If you're also new to the channel, I would appreciate if you might subscribe for more RPG games and survival games, of course, in the future. And last but not least, for more Dune games, because I actually do enjoy the game, and I have over 150 hours in the game after just a month of playtime. So, I like the game. So, see you next time. Bye bye.